Okay, welcome to the lesson on averages. Now, you might have heard of the word average before. It's probably something that you've come across. You maybe done a bit of work with it. So I just wanted to give a wee bit of an overview in case there's any gaps in your understanding. So, an average is a word that we use when we take a list of numbers, usually numbers, we call that data, and we choose one number to represent all that data. So you might talk about the average age or average income. What we're really saying is we're taking a whole lot of different examples of that, and then we're picking one number which is supposed to be typical of that list to represent it, to say if you could boil it all down to one number, this is it. It's a really difficult thing to do, particularly when you've got a lot of numbers or when you've got a very differing set of values, when some are large, some are small. One of the ways in which we can help that is we've actually got three averages to choose from, and they all perform the same purpose. So we need to make sure we know them all so that we can pick whichever one seems to work best. So there's three averages. You might have heard of some or all of them. So the first one is the mean, and the second is the median, and the last one is the mode, sometimes called the modal value. So you might hear or see the word modal being used. That's just the kind of the adjective that goes in front of value, the modal value, the modal price, the modal age, but it's from the word mode. So mean, median, and mode are three averages, and in order to apply the correct one, then we actually want to we have to know what they all are. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a couple of these just now. The first that we are going to look at is on the mode. Okay, it's actually usually the easiest one to find. Doesn't involve any calculations. The mode is the most common or most frequent value in a list of numbers. It's helpful, it's not necessary to write them out in order. You may be able to spot quite clearly from a list which one is the most common, but it's always good to check by writing them out in order. So for example, here we're asked to find the modal value. That's that use of that extra wee word modal, so remember that just as another word for meaning we're looking for the mode. So in the first example here, we actually have all the numbers in order. We can see there are two sevens and there are three 12s. All the others have one value each. So it's quite clear here that we've got the mode is 12. So we could write down at the side or underneath mode equals 12. And what I would always expect you to do is to write down the list of numbers that you're using first of all, so that it's quite clear what that the answer is for. So don't ever just write down the answer. You're always going to write down the data set first of all. The second list here is clearly not in numerical order. You might be able to scan along and pick out the mode, but it can be quite tricky and it's very easy to make a mistake. So it's usually common to try and write them out in numerical order. One of the ways you can do that accurately is you find the smallest one, which in this case is the 1, and you can either tick it above it or put a little line through it. You don't want to completely obliterate it, so I'll put a little tick there. So I've got a 1, and then I've got a 2, so I've got 1, 2. So I've got a 1, and then I've got a 2. I've got any 3s, no 3s, 4s. I've got a 1, 4. 5, I've got 1, 2, 3 5s. I've got 6, 2 6s. I've got no 7s. I've got 1 8. And you can see the ticks help just to kind of narrow it down. I've got 2 9s. And the last thing you can do just to check is have I got the same number of data values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in the original list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm quite convinced I've written that out correctly. And we can see here that there are 3 5s. So in this case here, we can say that the mode is 5. So as long as you're taking care to rearrange your list if you have to. It's quite straightforward to spot the mode. One other little tip here, and sometimes you get very large data sets. Some people could be working with hundreds or thousands or even millions of data values. So obviously there's computer programs and stuff. A simple way of helping to deal with a large number like that would be to, especially if they're all single digits, might be to make up a tally table. In other words, what I might do is actually just write down the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I'm just going to go along and mark in a tally for each one. So I'm going to start at the beginning. I'm not going to go through them and count all the fours, for instance. I'm just going to go 4 and put a dash, 3, dash. And that means that I'm taking each number as it comes. I'm not skipping any. I don't lose track. And I put a little line so that if I do get distracted, I know where I'm at. And every time you get an extra one, you put an extra wee tally there. And it's the one where once you get to 5, you can close the gate on a wee kind of sloping line, if that helps. So just going to quickly finish this off. There's 4, 2, 7. One of the main issues with statistics and analysis of it is people missing data because they kind of rush to make judgments or they rush to rewrite things. So it's worth taking the time to do it right. So we've got 5, 2, 8, 6. We've actually got 2 6s, I see there. So I put a wee line across the 6 too. That's a group of 5. And then I've got one last 5. There we go. So again, you could double check 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 12, or 25 pieces of information. And how many tallies have I got? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And I've got 26 dashes here, and that's really interesting. That tells me that something's not quite right. Have I just counted 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22, 4, 5. I'm going to recount that. 6, 11, 15, 19, 22, 24, 25. I just miscounted, so it's worth going back through. So quite clearly we can see here there are 5 6s here. Here is the mode, so we can say that the mode is 6. Okay, but it's good to show any working. I want to see the actual original list written down. I want to see any way that you've reordered it, and then only then do you actually communicate what the answer is. Okay, so that's the mode. The other one we were talking about was the median. So we'll talk about the mean later on. Here we go. So median is written in a different way. It's the median average is the middle number. So one of the ways we could think about the typical number with the mode is just, well, surely the one that appears most often, we'll call that the typical number. Sometimes that's not appropriate. So here's another way to think about it. What about the middle number? Now, it can only be the middle if there's an order to it. Otherwise, it's just going to be random. So the order has to be an order of size, usually from smallest to largest, or it could be largest to smallest. You'll get the same answer. So let's have a look at these examples here. The first list 5 numbers. What's the median? Well, they're all written in numerical order. So we can see here that out of 5 numbers, the middle number happens to be 17. Now we can tell it's the middle number because to the left of 17 there's 2 numbers, and to the right of 17 there are 2 numbers, so it's bang in the middle. Okay, so we can write down here that the median value is 17. That's the average or typical number in that list. Let's have a look at the second list here. Well, we've got 42, 50, 52, 60. They're all in order. That's good. So if I go somewhere into the middle, the problem is that if 52 and 64 are kind of in the middle, but if I make 52 my median, then there's only 2 numbers to one side and 3 to the other. And if I make 64 the median, there's 3 to the left and 2 to the right, so neither of these actually kind of balance it out. So what it tells us is that when there's an even number of numbers, in this case there's 6 values here, we actually have to go into the middle in between 2 numbers, and that splits it into 3 on the left and 3 on the right. So sometimes the median is not pointing at a number, and what we have to then do is find out what's in between 52 and 64. What's halfway between 52 and 64? Well, there's 12 of a gap between the two, so half of 12 is 6. So we're looking at 6 more than 52. The median is 58. One of the ways you can do it, if the numbers are quite big or it's not so easy, you just add the 2 numbers in the middle and divide by 2. You're actually finding the mean of those 2 numbers, which maybe you already know, but you add the 2 numbers, which in this case would be 116 divided by 2, which is also 58. So there's a kind of calculation you can do if you're not sure. And lastly, this is clearly not in order, so I'll just take a moment to reorder it. Smallest number is 3. Okay, so there are 1, 2. Oh, there's 2 3s. What have I got? I've got a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and an 8. So I've got 5, 6, 7, and 8. I've got a 9 and a 10 and a 13. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 numbers. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Well, I've missed out the 12. Yeah, I didn't tick it. So always double check when we're doing things like that. So I make mistakes, but what I do try and make sure is that my checking spots them. Okay, we all make mistakes, but it's about if you can identify. So here we've got them in order. So we've got 12 numbers. So that tells me straight away my median is going to be halfway, because 12 is even. So let's have a look and see. Halfway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I put it halfway after 6 numbers, I've got 6 to the left. Oh, hang on, there's only 10 numbers. Sorry, I made a mistake there. I was thinking of the number 12, I think, because that was my number that was missed out. There are only 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Right. There are only 10 pieces of information. So it's going to be halfway along is about 5. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. So my median is bang in the middle of 7 and 8, which is 7.5. So the median here is 7.5. Okay. So different ways you can spot. Always do that check. Have I got the same number of values to the left and to the right? Okay. And the last wee thing is more of a puzzle, and that helps us to understand how these things work. So you might be asked, make up your own data set. So in these kind of situations, there's always more than one answer. But it helps us to understand what's going on. So it's find a suitable data set, first of all with 6 numbers in the list and a mode of 7. So 7 has to be the most common. So there's a whole rack of possible solutions, as long as the list has 6 numbers in it and 7 is the one that appears the most. It doesn't have to be at the beginning or at the end. So I could just pick it random. I'll pick 5, 7, 7, 7, 11 and 14. There's 6 numbers. 7 appears the most, therefore that fits that. Yeah, you could do any. You could have all numbers could be 7. That's a wee bit of a cheat, but it's still true. Or you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 and 7. That fits too. So let's have a look at the second one. 8 numbers and a median of 14. You want to pause it. You could always have a go first of all. The median is going to be 14. It means that's now 8 numbers is interesting because it tells us that the median 14 isn't actually one of the numbers. All right, because if there's 8 numbers, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 14 is actually halfway between the fifth and the sixth number, if you the fourth and the fifth number, if you know what I mean. So the 14 is not actually one of the numbers in the list, so that's a wee bit sneaky. So it doesn't really matter what my lower numbers are as long as they are lower than 14. So I'm going to go just pick random numbers 2, 6, 7. And it doesn't matter what the big numbers are, they can be anything 20, 30, and 100. But the crucial thing here is that the two numbers on either side have to be, 14 has to be halfway between them. So for instance, I could pick 12, which is 2 below 14, so I'd have to pick 16, which is 2 above. Okay, as long as 14 is halfway between 12 and 16, then that's correct. Okay, and the last one, a median of 8 and a mode of 5. Okay, so where it doesn't tell us how many numbers are in the list. It just tells us that 8 has to be the median. I'm going to pick an odd data set, big odd number, so that 8 can be on the list. So here's 8. And just randomly, I'm going to suggest, I'm going to pick 3 numbers on either side. So I'm going to put 2 5s here. I'm going to put a 1. And in order for 5 to be the mode, I just have to make sure that I don't repeat myself. So I'll go like that. There we go. Just check, the median is 8 here and the mode is 5, so that's an example. But of course there are plenty of other options. You could maybe go and see if you could find another couple for each of those. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The two averages, the mode and the median. We're going to cover the mean in another video, and that will hopefully be helpful too. Right, go and try.